Hey friends, tonight let's explore why, in some medieval ports, a monkey could ruin your whole week and possibly your immune system. You're standing on a creaky dock just after sunset. The wood beneath your feet groans like it's trying to retire. The sea smells like saltfish guts and moldy ambition. A ship has just arrived, its sails tattered, its crew half awake, and its cargo barrels of spice bolts of cloth and one very nervous monkey on a chain. This little creature, no bigger than a curled up loaf of bread, is chittering nonstop. The crew calls him Tib, the townsfolk call him Bad Luck, and the harbor inspector, he just calls for backup. Tonight's historical fact: in several bustling port cities of medieval Europe, like Venice, Marseille, and Lisbon, monkeys brought in on ships were often associated with sudden outbreaks of fever rash, or worse, smallpox. The link wasn't medical, it was observational and superstitious. But when you've seen 3 ships dock with monkeys, and all 3 are followed by outbreaks, you start connecting dots, even the wrong ones. Tib, our monkey, is now sitting on a barrel of saffron tail, twitching like he knows something's coming. A boy offers him a fig. The monkey accepts it, eats it thoughtfully, and then flings the remains directly at a customs officer's shoes. Somewhere in the distance, someone sneezes. You watch as the ship's log is inspected. The captain insists that everyone on board is healthy, except for one cook, who has a few boils, but he's always had those. Classic line. A physician in a wide-brimmed hat begins inspecting the sailors. He looks them up and down, then points to Tib. "Where did this animal come from?" he asks. "Calicut," the captain replies. "He's a gift." The physician says, stepping back like the monkey just whispered something unsavory. It's worth noting back then, the idea of disease transmission wasn't exactly scientific. Germ theory wouldn't become common knowledge for centuries. Instead, people believed in miasmas, bad humors, divine punishment, or monkeys. If something strange was nearby during a plague, it probably caused it. That logic is how poor Tib here ends up in a wooden crate, covered with garlic cloves and incense, waiting for the town council to decide if he needs to be drowned, burned, or given to the monastery as a penance. You stroll along the pier, passing a cluster of dock workers whispering. One leans toward the other. They say the last ship had one of them too. Bit a man. He died 2 days later. Of course, they're confusing correlation with causation, but it's not like statistics is a core subject in the medieval school of hard knocks. Here's the quirky bit. Some port records actually list monkeys in their customs manifests next to pigs, cats, and occasionally parrots. Some documents even note them under possible quarantine triggers. One particularly odd case from Barcelona describes a monkey being held in a locked wine cellar for observation. Spoiler, the monkey drank the wine. Back on the dock, a town scribe arrives to document the inspection. He sketches the ship, the monkey, and the suspicious cook, all labeled with dramatic captions like Beast of Foreign Heat and Boils Man. The drawing later ends up in an archive, next to someone's grocery list and an unfinished love poem. And while this might sound ridiculous now, the fear was real. People saw their loved ones fall sick days after a ship arrived. They didn't know about viral incubation periods, but they knew patterns. And the pattern they noticed monkeys meant illness. Of course, modern scholars debate this. Some argue the monkeys were scapegoats, easy targets because they were loud, alien, and smelled vaguely of mischief. Others suggest they were accidental carriers, possibly harboring fleas, or viruses picked up during long voyages. But there's no direct evidence linking a monkey to any outbreak. Just a lot of panic and a little too much incense. Still try explaining that to a medieval dock worker with a rash. You head toward the edge of the quay, where a group of children are pointing at Tib. One of them swears he saw the monkey sneeze. Another says it winked. A third insists that the monkey spoke to him in Latin. He's lying, but it's a good lie. And there in the orange glow of a torch, the monkey yawns, curls into a ball, and goes to sleep, completely unaware that he's been labeled a biological threat. 3 jokes before bedtime. Why don't medieval doctors trust monkeys? Because every time they ask for a second opinion, it's just banana related. What's a monkey's favorite plague precaution? Flea collars. Always fashionable, never effective. If a monkey bites a noble in port, does that make it a pox monkey of the realm? The sun hasn't quite risen, but the port is already simmering with rumors, like a stew someone forgot to stir. You're standing near a line of barrels stacked by the customs house. They smell faintly of brine and rotting figs, which incidentally is also how rumors tend to ferment in this town. Word of the monkey has spread. Not just a monkey, the monkey. Tib has become a legend overnight. The whispers aren't about saffron or salt anymore. They're about fur fever and foreign curses. Tonight's historical fact in several medieval port cities, especially those along the Mediterranean, it was common for gossip and superstition to outpace science by several leagues. The belief that monkeys were linked to outbreaks like smallpox wasn't written in medical journals. It was passed through murmurs over barrels and under breath. You overhear a dock worker muttering to his friend, "That little beast has devil's eyes." Heard it looked at a sailor, and the man coughed blood. You'd like to say that's an exaggeration. You'd really like to say that. But one of the sailors did get a nosebleed this morning, which in this particular town is basically confirmation of demonic monkey sorcery. At the heart of the drama is the port's notary, a man who looks like his primary diet is paper and suspicion. He spent the night rewriting the town's animal import laws. As of this morning, monkeys require 3 seals of approval, 2 days of quarantine, and an oath that they carry no curses known or unknown. Bureaucracy meets bedtime story. You wander toward the fish market, which today smells more like paranoia than perch. A vendor is burning dried rosemary near his stall, not for the scent, but to ward off airborne fur demons. It's not FDA approved, but no one's arguing. Nearby, a woman carries a cage with a small white monkey. She claims it's an albino ward spirit. She also claims it keeps her family safe and her neighbor jealous. The town priest disagrees, loudly, with incense and 3 buckets of holy water. Here's the quirky detail. The idea that animals could spread illness wasn't entirely wrong. They could, but not in the way medieval folks imagined. Fleas, for instance, loved hanging out on rats, cats, and yes, monkeys. And those fleas could absolutely spread disease. But to the medieval mind, it wasn't the flea, it was the vibe. Bad animal, shikta, bad health. No one had microscopes. They had metaphors. In one port city, a local artist created a woodcut of the monkey of death. It featured a snarling primate perched on a pile of bones holding a plague flag in one paw and a rosary in the other. It became wildly popular. Kids traded it like baseball cards. One child reportedly slept with it under his pillow. He later got lice, but that's another story. You continue your stroll and pass a group of sailors standing in a circle. In the middle, Tib the monkey, now wearing a tiny hat made from a folded letter. Someone tried to exorcise him by reading the letter aloud, which unfortunately was just a receipt for 4 goats and a barrel of pickles. Even the town physician has weighed in. His official diagnosis: the monkey is too alert to be trusted. He prescribes garlic cold baths and distance from the animal in question. This becomes the first documented use of the medieval 6-foot rule. Meanwhile, Tib has developed a fan club of local children who feed him dates and mimic his screeches. One child coughs, and suddenly the crowd scatters like startled pigeons. The child is fine. The monkey is offended. Now here's where things get academically messy. Some scholars argue that all this monkey blaming was just a convenient scapegoating tactic, especially when outbreaks threatened commerce. Ships meant money, and ports couldn't afford to shut down. But blaming one loud exotic creature, much easier than questioning entire trade routes. Others suggest that it wasn't just about disease. Monkeys represented something foreign, chaotic, and uncontainable, just like smallpox itself. The metaphor writes itself. Fur fever and fear all conveniently in one twitchy package. But again, no real evidence points to monkeys spreading smallpox in these ports. Just a lot of noise, a few poorly drawn sketches, and at least one monkey who now refuses to eat anything that smells like sage. You pass the customs house again, where Tib is now inside a wooden pen, surrounded by scribes clergy, and what appears to be an herbalist holding a bag of nettles and moral superiority. They're debating whether the monkey should be sent inland for observation or to a monastery for redemption. Yes, redemption. Because apparently if your fur is soft enough, you can be forgiven for pandemics. 3 bedtime giggles before we drift further. What do you call a monkey quarantined by 4 bureaucrats and a bishop? A public health crisis on tiny feet. Why did the monkey refuse to testify? Because he didn't want to throw anyone under the barge, especially not the cook. What's a monkey's least favorite port job? Being blamed for someone else's rash. The morning fog clings to the bay like a rumor you can't quite shake. You're perched on a low wall near the city granary, watching as a cart creaks by, with 2 barrels of salted fish, a child holding a goose, and yes, Tib the monkey, again now, in a cage lined with straw and moral outrage. Apparently, the town council has ruled Tib will be relocated to the monastery just outside the city, for safekeeping, for quarantine, possibly for confession. Tonight's historical fact: many medieval port cities turned to monasteries during times of disease, not just for prayer, but as holding grounds. Animals suspected of spreading illness were sometimes taken to cloisters or abbeys where monks could observe them in isolation. Yes, medieval monks doubled as quarantine officers. You trail behind the cart past open stalls and closed shutters. People peek from behind curtains. Some cross themselves. One throws a cabbage. As the cart bumps along the cobblestones, the driver grumbles. A monkey today, a lion next week. What next, talking goats with halitosis? No one answers, mostly because that last one already happened. Briefly. Long story. At the monastery gates, 2 monks await. One carries a scroll. The other carries a broom. Neither look thrilled. A young monk reads from the scroll. Be it known that this creature of unknown origin, being neither Christian nor taxable, is to be held under the supervision of the Brothers of St. Elmo until such time that he is deemed spiritually and physically benign. The monkey sneezes. The monk with the broom backs up. Inside the monastery smells of parchment beeswax and old discipline. You follow as Tib is placed in a small side chamber formerly used to house injured owls. He immediately claims a corner and begins grooming himself like he owns the place. The monks, to their credit, are trying to be scientific. One records how often the monkey eats. Another tracks his sleep. A third watches to see if anyone nearby develops mysterious spots or starts rhyming uncontrollably, a suspected early symptom of madness. The data is inconclusive. Mostly because the monkey keeps stealing the ink. Here's the quirky detail. One monk draws a chart, what we'd now call a disease map. He notes when and where townspeople fell ill, what ships had arrived, and yes, where monkeys were seen. It's one of the earliest known attempts at epidemiological correlation in the region. It's also completely wrong. His chart shows that illness spikes on days ending in the letter Y, and that monkeys prefer doorways facing south. But hey, at least he's trying. Meanwhile, word spreads that the monks are housing the pox beast. Pilgrims avoid the path nearby. A baker refuses to sell bread to anyone with a whiff of incense. And one particularly excitable child tells his classmates that the monkey glows in the dark. He doesn't. He just stole a candle. You walk through the cloister, passing a garden where two older monks argue softly. Brother Anselm. If the animal survives a week without signs, he's innocent. Brother Hugo. If he dies, is that proof of guilt? Brother Anselm. No, that's just natural monkey decay. You decide not to weigh in. The days pass slowly. Tib, to the monk's mild horror, thrives. He eats well. He naps on a velvet pillow someone left near the choir loft. He even imitates the bell ringer, leading to 3 false alarms and 1 very confused rooster. And then the twist. One of the brothers, young bookish, with a fondness for figs, develops a rash. Just a few spots. Hardly noticeable. But that's all it takes. Panic blooms like mildew after a rainy week. The monastery locks its gates. A red cloth is hung from the chapel tower signal of possible contagion. And Tib. He is blamed, of course. The monkey shrieks as they move his cage to the outer courtyard. You're there watching as the monks light bundles of dried sage and mutter protective verses. One sprinkles salt in a circle. Another insists they cover the monkey with a cloth to confuse the spirits. Tib steals the cloth and wears it like a cape. Now here's the scholarly debate. Was this outbreak real, or did fear create symptoms? Some historians believe cases of monkeypox in medieval records weren't smallpox at all, but anxiety-induced rashes or entirely unrelated skin conditions misdiagnosed by candlelight. Others argue that travelers, animals, and trade goods absolutely could have spread pathogens, especially in close quarters, like ships or cloisters. But blaming one monkey, that's where logic gets fuzzy. Still, it's easier to fear a face than a flea, especially when that face is furry and occasionally flings things. 3 bedtime chuckles, brought to you by Tib, the Unbothered. What did the medieval monk say after meeting the monkey? Bless you, and also no offense, but please leave. Why didn't Tib like Gregorian chants? Not enough rhythm. Too few maracas. What's a monkey's favorite prayer? Deliver us from fleas, but not figs. The courtyard is quiet, but it's not peaceful. It's the kind of quiet you get when everyone's too afraid to sneeze. You're standing under a fig tree inside the monastery walls, listening to the nervous rustle of robes and the soft clink of brass incense burners. Above you, the chapel bell gives a half-hearted clang, more like a cough than a call to prayer. Tib the monkey is now under semi-house arrest, His cage has been reinforced with 2 wooden bars, a blessed ribbon, and for some reason, a tiny horseshoe. Monastic logic if it works for donkeys, maybe it'll work for primates. Tonight's historical fact: some monastic communities in medieval Europe created elaborate rituals to test if an animal was cursed or blessed, especially during health crises. These rituals ranged from placing relics in the animal's enclosure to observing if it responded to sacred chants. Results were, let's say, interpretive. Brother Hugo is convinced the monkey is plotting something. He's set up a rota of holy observation, which mostly consists of monks taking turns staring at Tib while humming suspiciously. Brother Anselm, however, is convinced Tib is just misunderstood. He's even composed a small prayer for him, which the monkey responded to by throwing a fig pit. The rash on the young monk Brother Pierre hasn't spread. It's likely eczema, or laundry soap, or fear. But since it appeared during the monkey week, no one's taking chances. Outside the monastery walls, things aren't much better. Rumors have taken root in the port, like barnacles on the hull of a ship. A merchant swears he saw a monkey sneeze at a sailor, and that sailor's wife fainted the next day. A baker insists his bread hasn't risen since the monkey arrived. A child claims the monkey hexed his dog. The dog is fine. The child isn't. He's grounded for lying. You move to the scriptorium, where 2 monks are recording the events for posterity and moral instruction. Their scroll is titled "On the Perils of Primate Contact in the Season of Suffering." It includes dramatic illustrations, one of Tib with glowing eyes, another of Brother Pierre looking vaguely itchy, and a third of a boat on fire for some reason. The monks have added a list of symptoms, which includes warm skin, watery eyes, the desire to climb fear of monkeys, and excessive twitching. So basically, every port resident after 2 espressos and a suspicious sneeze. Now here's the quirky detail. In a few rare manuscripts, monkeys were listed not only as possible disease carriers, but as protectors. One folktale tells of a monkey who stole a cursed talisman and ran into the woods, saving a village. Another tells of a monkey who warned of illness by screaming each time someone with symptoms approached. More likely, he just didn't like people. Back in the monastery, Tib is being tested again. This time, the monks are playing a hymn to see if he reacts. He does by mimicking the notes. Unfortunately, his mimicry sounds suspiciously like mockery. Brother Hugo faints. Brother Anselm applauds. In a final attempt to determine the monkey's spiritual alignment, the monks place a relic believed to be a toenail of Saint Eligius inside the cage. Tib ignores it, but then hours later, he sneezes. This is taken as a sign. A reaction, Brother Hugo proclaims. To dust, mutters Brother Anselm. Now, modern historians argue about these kinds of events. Some say they were symbolic, a way for people to feel in control during times of uncertainty. Others suggest genuine attempts at early science wrapped in spiritual trimmings. Either way, the monkey is still stuck in the courtyard, still grooming himself, still unbothered by the chaos his existence has caused. You wander to the edge of the garden where a novice monk is feeding chickens. He confides in you that he secretly likes Tib, thinks the monkey has wise eyes, also admits he shared a plum tart with him 2 days ago. You both agree to keep that detail quiet. At sundown, the abbey holds a brief ceremony, not for healing, not for cleansing, for clarity. They ask the divine for insight about the monkey dilemma. The sky remains silent. Tib, however, steals a candle and tries to eat it. 3 featherlight chuckles before bedtime. Why was the monk jealous of the monkey? Because Tib got more visitors and better snacks. How do you tell if a monkey likes your sermon? If he doesn't throw the hymnal at your head, he's engaged. What's the official monastic term for monkey-related anxiety? Simian spiritual distress. The moon is up, but no one's sleeping. Not in the monastery, not in the town, and certainly not in the house by the docks, where an herbalist named Marta is boiling something that smells like burnt fennel and regret. You're sitting on a low stool in her shop, surrounded by jars with labels like cured fox lung and really just rosemary, but expensive. Marta is hunched over her cauldron muttering. She's heard about the monkey, of course. Everyone has. But she doesn't think the monkey is the problem. No, she thinks the problem is the port's air. It's thick with stories, she says, adding a pinch of saffron to the bubbling brew. Stories are more contagious than pox. Tonight's historical fact: during medieval outbreaks, bad air, or miasma, was one of the leading explanations for illness. People believed disease was carried in invisible clouds of corruption. And exotic animals, especially noisy mobile ones like monkeys, were thought to bring more than just fleas. They brought atmospheric disruption. Marta isn't convinced that Tib the monkey caused anything. But she does believe he's a conductor, like metal near lightning, or a bard near gossip. He attracts energy. Maybe that's why she says, "Your hair's been a little staticky since you arrived." You check your reflection. It's true. She sends you home with a pouch of herbs to calm the air around you, and a candle molded in the shape of a monkey. You're not sure if it's protective or ironic. Back at the monastery, things have escalated. Brother Pierre's rash has faded, but now another monk. Brother Eustace claims to have a headache and feelings of squirrel-related dread. No one knows what that means, but everyone agrees it sounds serious. The abbot is starting to regret letting the monkey stay. The townspeople, meanwhile, have entered full speculative mode. A councilwoman insists the monkey was smuggled in to disrupt trade by foreign rivals. A baker suspects the animal is a transformed sailor. One child says the monkey turned into a ghost and stole her shoes. It did not. She lost them in the well while playing ghost monkey. And then comes the banner. Yes, a literal banner. One enterprising resident hangs a sheet from their upper window with the words, "Ban the beast." It flaps in the wind like it's trying to start a rebellion. Someone else paints a sign, "Fur brings fevers." Merchants nod solemnly. A tailor complains that now no one wants his squirrel-trimmed hoods. Here's the odd historical footnote. Several port records from the 14th and 15th centuries reference short-lived public panics about exotic animals. In Marseille, a lemur was blamed for 3 miscarriages and a burned bakery. In Genoa, a parrot was briefly imprisoned for inciting unrest. In Bruges, someone threw a tantrum when a mongoose escaped and was mistaken for a devil. There was also a very brief period where hedgehogs were accused of milk theft, but that's a story for another night. The town's physicians meet to discuss the monkey matter. They wear wide-brimmed hats and look like overworked mushrooms. Their conclusions are inconclusive. One recommends pepper applied to the temples. Another suggests fasting. The third proposes sending Tib on a pilgrimage to atone for his fur. Tib, for his part, has taken to perching dramatically near the monastery fountain. He strikes noble poses and mimics the bell toll. A passing artist sketches him labeling the drawing "Saint of Suffering." No one knows if it's satire or prophecy. And then the twist of the evening. A sailor just returned from a short voyage collapses near the docks. Fever, rash, groaning. The port erupts. He touched the monkey. He looked at the monkey. I heard he was the monkey. Chaos blooms again. Like moss after a rainstorm, the sailor is carried to a storage shed, which is hastily blessed and turned into a quarantine hut. Marta, the herbalist, is summoned. She arrives with a bucket of feather and a list of things she refuses to explain. It will turn out the sailor has food poisoning. But for now, he's the final straw. The town council meets by torchlight. Their verdict: the monkey must leave. 3 overheated jokes before we tuck in. Why didn't the herbalist trust the council? Because they once diagnosed garlic as suspiciously spicy. What's the monkey's official new title, public menace and furry symbol of uncertainty? Why was the candle shaped like a monkey? Because nothing says safety like flammable symbolism. You're standing at the town gates, watching a cart rattle toward the horizon. On board 1 monk, 3 sacks of provisions, a jug of holy water, and a monkey with absolutely no idea he's being exiled. Again, Tibb's little cage sits wedged between a bag of oats and a jar of pickled turnips, which feels metaphorically appropriate. The town council's ruling was swift, unanimous, and wrapped in 3 layers of public anxiety. The monkey had to go. Not because he was proven dangerous, but because people needed to see something leave. Tonight's historical fact: medieval public health decisions were often driven by optics and symbolism more than science. Removing a suspicious animal or person wasn't necessarily about halting disease, but about signaling that something was being done. Ritual mattered, spectacle reassured. The cart trundles down the road toward the forested hills beyond the port, headed for a remote hermitage, where Tibb will live under spiritual observation. That is a small hut, 1 elderly friar, and a lot of silence. No bells, no rumors, no fig-throwing crowds. You trail behind the procession, at a distance, passing townspeople who whisper prayers or toss salt behind their backs. 1 child waves a goodbye, holding up a small wooden monkey carved overnight by her father for luck. She doesn't notice the tails on backwards. Back at the port, life pretends to return to normal. Vendors open their stalls again. Fishermen shout at gulls instead of gossiping about symptoms. The baker hangs a sign that says, "No monkeys served here," which is both unnecessary and weirdly threatening. But beneath the surface, something's shifted. People walk a little quicker past the quarantine shed, where the sailor still recovers from what is now clearly spoiled mutton. The town council meets twice a day instead of once, and someone's begun sketching chalk monkeys on doorsteps as warnings or jokes, or maybe both. Meanwhile, the monastery feels empty, not quieter, emptier. The fountain where Tibb posed so dramatically now echoes. The fig tree in the courtyard drops fruit no one eats. Even the chickens seem less inspired. Brother Anselm writes in his journal, "He is gone. We remain. I do not know which of us was truly more disruptive." He also notes with faint amusement that 2 of the monks have reported phantom monkey sounds near the bell tower. Likely imagination, or wind, or guilt, or all 3. Here's the quirky bit in a few preserved letters from port communities during epidemics. There are occasional references to the monkey solution code for removing something strange or foreign to restore social equilibrium. It didn't always mean a literal monkey, but in this case, it very much did. The sailor recovers fully after 2 days once Marta forces him to drink her stomach-purifying potion made of ginger vinegar and whatever else she had lying around. He swears off salted meat and monkeys and maybe boats. At a town gathering, someone suggests building a small statue to commemorate the pox incident. The proposal stalls when no one can agree if it should depict the monkey heroically or villainously. One version has him holding a plague flag, another a tiny scroll. A third has him wearing a bishop's hat. That sculptor is quietly asked to stop. You take an evening walk through the upper quarter, where the wind smells like citrus blossoms and uncertainty. You pass a group of children playing tag. They've invented a new rule. If you touch someone and yell monkey fever, they're frozen until blessed with lavender smoke. Educational? No. Popular? Absolutely. And then, because history never quite lets go, you hear that another ship is due tomorrow. From a southern port, with exotic cargo, possibly birds, possibly not just birds. The customs inspector sighs so hard his hat tilts. 3 slightly exiled chuckles before you sleep. What's the medieval cure for monkey-induced panic? Export it. Why did the monk volunteer to escort Tib? Because he needed a retreat, and monkeys don't snore. Much. What's Tib's new job title in the hills? Local distraction and occasional fruit critic. The ship docks at dawn, its hull crusted with barnacles and maybe a few regrets. You're watching from the ramparts, wrapped in a borrowed cloak that smells like lavender and lost patience. Below, stevedores shout ropes tighten, and the sea glugs against stone like it's trying to offer commentary. The new vessel is smaller than the last one, the one that brought Tib, and now already people are eyeing it like it's a bad decision pulling into port. The crew disembarks slowly, stretching limbs and offering the occasional sheepish wave. They carry baskets of fruit bolts, of fabric, and oh look, 3 parrots in painted cages. But what everyone's actually staring at is the large wooden box being hauled from the hold carefully, reverently, and very, very nervously. Because rumor has it, there's another monkey. Tonight's historical fact: some medieval port authorities began keeping informal logs of animal imports, especially after periods of illness. These logs weren't consistent, but they reveal something curious. Monkeys and other exotic pets kept turning up, despite local bans. Why? Because nobles still wanted them, and nobles didn't follow rules. They wrote them. The port inspector approaches the captain, a man with sea foam in his beard, and the expression of someone who's had to explain himself too many times. "What's in the box?" the inspector asks. The captain smiles. "A macaque. For a merchant's son? He just lost a dog?" The inspector blinks. "So, your solution to grief? Is a monkey better than a goat?" The captain shrugs. You walk down toward the docks as the conversation unfolds. The crowd is small, but tense. A baker clutches her apron like it's a talisman. "Don't you know?" The child holds up a sign that says "No more furry plague." It's spelled wrong, but the message is heartfelt. The inspector sighs and waves the captain forward under one condition: the monkey must be quarantined. Again. This time, not at the monastery. That ship has sailed. Literally. Instead, the animal will be held in a repurposed pigeon loft beside the city granary. It's dusty. It smells like feathers and abandonment, and it's available. As they lift the lid, you brace yourself. But instead of a fever-eyed devil or a fig-flinging menace, what you see is a baby monkey, smaller than a kitten, wrapped in a scrap of cloth, half asleep and entirely unimpressed. The crowd exhales. Someone claps. Someone else sneezes and ruins the moment. Now here's the odd detail. In many medieval texts, baby animals were considered symbolically innocent, even holy. Tiny monkeys, if handled correctly, were sometimes kept as novelty pets in wealthier homes believed to mimic human behavior and even predict moods. One Italian merchant allegedly trained his monkey to deliver love notes. It ended poorly for the monkey and the marriage. In this case, the merchant's son, Mathieu, is waiting nearby. He steps forward, all of 10 years old, with a nose smudged in ink and shoes that haven't seen polish in a fortnight. He looks at the monkey. The monkey yawns. It's mutual love at second glance. The inspector raises an eyebrow. You'll keep it clean. Indoors. Mathieu nods so hard his hat falls off. And if it sneezes, we'll both have a bath, the boy replies. A small laugh ripples through the crowd. A little humor, a little healing. But not everyone is soothed. Back at the council hall, debates rage. If we let one monkey in, says the chancellor, how long before they all come back? Are we talking about animals or diseases, someone mutters. Both. The council agrees to draft new guidelines. Exotic animals must be declared observed, and this part is bold blessed before entering homes. The local priest is less than thrilled. Meanwhile, you find yourself strolling to Marta, the herbalist's, to shop again. She's hanging bundles of thyme above the door and humming. So it begins again, she says, without looking up. You ask her if she thinks the monkey's a threat. No, she says. But the fear is. She offers you a pouch of crushed mint and dried citrus peel for clarity. It smells like good choices. You tuck it in your pocket. As night falls, the pigeon loft glows with candlelight. Mathieu is sitting beside the cage, telling the monkey stories about ships and stars. The monkey blinks slowly, then curls into sleep. For now, peace. But the council has scheduled another emergency meeting. 3 giggles before bedtime. What do you get when a merchant replaces a dog with a monkey? A lot of shredded curtains and emotional growth. Why was the parrot jealous? Because he spoke Latin and still got stuck in a cage. What's a monkey's least favorite port regulation? No figs past this point. You wake to bells, not the solemn toll of warning, but the rhythmic clang of market day. From your window, the port looks freshly scrubbed, as if the town is trying very hard to forget the recent monkey matters. Stalls bloom with bolts of dyed wool barrels of dried fish, and the occasional questionable fruit shaped like an apology. But there, in the midst of the buzz and barter, is something new. A merchant selling small painted charms, each one shaped like a monkey. Tonight's historical fact: in several medieval European ports, charms or tokens resembling feared symbols were sold not to ward off misfortune, but to domesticate it. If you could carry the image, maybe the threat would stay small, manageable, almost cute. You make your way to the stall. The charms are crude, some carved from driftwood, others painted onto pebbles. One features a grinning monkey riding a fish. Another wears a bishop's mitre. Yet another has suspiciously sharp teeth and a tiny cape. The sign says, for protection, for luck, for laughs. The merchant winks. You can't ban fear, but you can sell it in 5 sizes. You buy one. It smells like varnish and economics. Elsewhere in town, life continues, but with a certain monkey-shaped outline. At the pigeon loft, Mathieu has taken to carrying his new companion in a satchel lined with wool. The monkey named Pippin, because of course has begun learning tricks, fetching buttons, untying knots, and most recently making a perfect raspberry noise when someone frowns too hard. Children love him. Adults are cautious. The council is conflicted. One member insists that Pippin is the softer face of contagion. Another calls him a diplomatic furball. A third suggests inviting the monkey to council meetings as a non-voting member just for morale. The baker from earlier is less amused. One monkey laughs, and next thing you know, the cheese goes sour. He now covers his loaves with linen and garlic just in case. Here's the side note historians find baffling. There exists a town ledger from a port near Bruges that lists public expenses during a minor outbreak. Among the items, 2 barrels of soap, 12 rosemary bundles, and 50 copper monkey amulets for street distribution. Which means someone actually thought, we have a health crisis, better print novelty jewelry. At the monastery, Brother Anselm has begun writing a small treatise. Its title, On the Simian Cycle: Fear, Blame, and the Repetition of Pox. It's deeply philosophical, slightly bitter, and contains at least one sketch of Tib dressed as St. Francis. Brother Hugo refuses to read it. Claims he's done with monkeys, forever, which would be convincing if not for the tiny monkey carved into the top of his walking stick. Meanwhile, Marta the herbalist is holding a small gathering in her shop. A mix of townsfolk, curious sailors, and one very confused goat. The topic: how fear spreads faster than illness, and why people keep blaming creatures who can't file complaints. She passes around a cup of mint tea. You sip. It tastes like calm and dried basil, and something faintly citrusy, like someone whispered an orange into the cup. Then comes the real twist. A visiting scribe from a neighboring city arrives. He's here on council request to record the full account of the monkey panic, which unfortunately is now an official term. He's young, curious, and deeply excited. Was it really a trial, he asks? Did the monkey actually cause a fever? Is it true he stole a bishop's hat? You, of course, remember the truth. Not quite, but not quite rarely survives in ink. The scribe begins collecting testimony. He visits the docks, the monastery, the pigeon loft. By the end of the week, he's written a poetic retelling involving two monkeys, one ghost of fig that glowed in the dark, and a town saved by laughter. It's mostly fiction. It becomes wildly popular. Now here's the detail no one expected after all this: more ships begin arriving with more exotic animals. A toucan here, a lemur there, one very sleepy badger that turns out to be a sack of old hats. And yes, one ship weeks later arrives with another monkey. But this time, the port doesn't panic. They quarantine it gently. They name it Sebastian. They give it a little scarf. It's not that they forgot the fear. It's just that they got used to its shape. 3 evening giggles before we sail into dreams. Why did the merchant put a monkey on every amulet? Because nothing says safety like handcrafted hysteria. What do you call a monkey in a council meeting? The most reasonable voice in the room. Why did the fig glow in the scribe's story? Because truth is fine, but glowing fruit sells. The pigeon loft now smells like apples, ink, and mischief. You're sitting cross-legged on the dusty floor, while Pippin the monkey tries to untie your boot for the 3rd time today. Across from you, Mathieu is making a tiny vest from scraps of blue linen, muttering to himself, like a tailor who's discovered religion through thread. I think he's a vest kind of monkey, he says, holding up the miniature garment for inspection. Pippin squeaks in agreement. Tonight's historical fact: in late medieval port towns, it wasn't unheard of for exotic pets, especially monkeys, to be dressed in small articles of clothing. These outfits were less about warmth and more about status. A monkey in a hat, fashionable. A monkey in a jacket, wealthy. A monkey in both, trouble. Word of Pippin's fashion debut spreads faster than a cart full of onions downhill. By midday, half the market has wandered by the granary to catch a glimpse of the monkey with better tailoring than the mayor. He's now wearing his vest and holding a peeled grape like a prince on lunch break. Even the priest stops by. He kneels, makes the sign of the cross, and mutters something about temptation. Then he gives the monkey a fig. The monkey bows. The priest leaves confused. Of course, not everyone is charmed. A minor noblewoman complains that animal accessories threaten the dignity of formal wear. The local textile guild drafts a half-serious petition to require monkey garments be registered. And one poor donkey, formerly the star of the annual midsummer parade, looks deeply jealous. Here's the strange side note. Several preserved town inventories from ports like Palermo, Lisbon, and Valencia list small garments in merchant homes labeled for simian use. Embroidered collars, woolen slippers. One household even commissioned a velvet cape for a monkey of medium attitude. At the council hall, someone finally asks the obvious question: what happens if people forget that monkeys are still animals? The answer comes later that evening, when Pippin, attempting to mimic Mathieu, dips a quill into ink and scribbles something on the boy's book. It's not legible. It's not even entirely on the page, but it sparks a philosophical debate at the monastery. If a monkey writes, is it blasphemy or progress? Brother Hugo says blasphemy. Brother Anselm suggests maybe it's just bad penmanship. Meanwhile, a new trend begins to ripple through the town, monkey-inspired fashion. A tailor unveils a cloak cut to evoke agile mischief. A milliner offers caps light enough for primate use, flattering enough for humans. Children start wearing vest-like smocks and squeaking when excited. The irony is thick, like honey left too long in the sun. Mathieu, to his credit, stays grounded. He insists Pippin is still just a monkey. Funny, yes. Curious, sure. But still a creature, not a prophet. Not a problem. Not a petting zoo pope. But the line continues to blur. One visiting merchant sees Pippin and offers 10 silver coins on the spot. He'd be perfect for my shop, the man says. He could wear signs or hand out sweets. Mathieu refuses. Politely. Then less politely. Then by hiding in a barrel with Pippin until the merchant sails away. It's funny you think how quickly the town has turned. From fear to fascination. From dread to dress-up. From disease to delight. But the undertow remains. At Marta's shop, a quiet conversation unfolds between two older townspeople. They speak softly, but the words carry. We're making a joke of what almost broke us, one says. Isn't that how you survive, replies the other. You leave with a small bundle of mint and sage, for clarity, and maybe just a little theatricality. As night falls, you find yourself back by the loft, listening to the wind rustle straw and starlight. Inside, Pippin sleeps, curled against Mathieu's side, clutching a button like its treasure. The vest hangs neatly on a peg. Tomorrow, someone will paint a portrait of Pippin, the day after a song. But for now, the monkey is quiet, and the town, for once, lets itself breathe. 3 soft chuckles for bedtime. Why didn't the monkey finish his autobiography? He kept eating the quills. What's the difference between a nobleman and Pippin? The monkey dresses better and knows when to stop talking. Why are monkey vests always blue? Because red makes them look too revolutionary. The portrait is finished. You're standing in the small back room of the cobbler's cousin's wife's nephew, who is apparently an aspiring artist. His studio smells like vinegar and crushed blueberries, probably from his homemade ink. On the easel, in a frame slightly too ornate for its own good, is the painting Pippin in his blue vest, perched on a windowsill, holding a grape with all the dignity of a minor saint or a very polite burglar. It's actually beautiful, and the town is losing its collective mind. Tonight's historical fact in the later Middle Ages, especially in port cities with exposure to foreign art and fashion monkeys, often appeared in visual culture, not just as pets or pests, but as metaphors. They represented vanity, cleverness, foreignness, even social satire. In some cases, monkeys were painted wearing human clothes to poke fun at nobles or clergy, which makes Pippin's portrait accidentally subversive. The painting is put on display in the bakery window, because of course it is. The baker has completely reversed his position on monkeys, now calling Pippin a blessing in blue. He even bakes little gingerbread monkeys for the market. They sell out before noon. And here comes the weird part. People begin posing like the portrait. One child leans on a bench with a raisin between 2 fingers, attempting the Pippin posture. A spice merchant sits cross-legged in a vest, requesting someone sketch him in the grape-holding style. Even the mayor gets involved. He commissions a formal monkey session where the town's artists are invited to draw local leaders as if they were stylish monkeys. It's part satire, part morale booster, and 100% chaotic. The town priest is depicted as a squirrel. The tax collector's portrait includes a banana. The resulting gallery is hung along the docks with signs like, Behold the monkey within, and all for no fury. Here's the quirky little footnote. For scholars, a single surviving image from this actual historical period, known only as the Monkey Tableau of Narbonne-sur-Mer, was rediscovered in the 19th century. It shows 12 humans, each with exaggerated monkey features, seated around a table, labeled Council of Better Decisions. It's unclear whether it was satire or hope. Meanwhile, back at the pigeon loft, Mathieu is torn. Pippin has become a local celebrity. People bring gifts, buttons, fruit, even a tiny velvet hat, which Pippin throws into a puddle immediately. But with all the attention comes pressure. Noblewoman suggests Pippin should visit schools to inspire curiosity. Town healer wonders if he could sniff out bad humors. Someone half-joking asks if he can be added to the town's crest. Mathieu writes a note and tucks it under Pippin's blanket. You are not a symbol. You are just you. That's enough. But of course, symbols don't get a vote. Council meetings now regularly include the monkey clause, meaning any discussion about town image, morale, or trade must consider how it affects Pippin's public standing. A disgruntled fisherman shouts, "He's a monkey, not a mascot." To which the mayor responds, "Can he be both?" That's the real debate. Because the fear has faded, the illness passed, the superstition, well, it's been rebranded as merchandise. There are now Pippin pastries, Pippin poems, and even a traveling actor who performs as Pippin the Prudent in alleyway puppet shows. You'd laugh if the puppets weren't so unsettling. At the monastery, Brother Anselm is still chronicling the saga. His new chapter is called From Panic to Pantomime, a study in civic transformation via small mammal. He includes a watercolor of Pippin with a halo and the caption, "Unofficial Saint of Distraction." Brother Hugo has stopped arguing, mostly because he's taken up whittling and now spends his evenings carving tiny wooden monkeys in various poses. He says it calms the nerves. You stroll through the market that night. The stars blink through clouds like nosy cousins. Someone's playing a lute. Someone else is selling painted stones that say, "Pippin protects." You pick one up. It's warm. Probably from the lantern nearby, but maybe something more. Back at the loft, Mathieu reads aloud to Pippin from a book of fables. The monkey listens, curled around a spoon. He understands nothing. He understands everything. 3 bedtime giggles and brushstrokes and breadcrumbs. Why did Pippin refuse to pose again? He wanted royalties and grapes. What's the town's new motto? In monkey we trust, in fashion we triumph. Why did the baker switch sides? He realized monkey cookies sell better than angry sermons. It's raining today. The soft kind of rain that makes rooftops hum and chickens sulk. You're tucked beneath the awning of the candle seller's cart, watching as townsfolk shuffle by in cloaks 2 sizes too big and sandals 2 centuries too old. Rain usually slows things down, but not today, because today, the monkey sneezed. Pippin, mid-morning, right after his usual grape snack, while perched on the granary's windowsill, wearing his blue vest and looking like he was about to judge the weather. One sneeze. Just one. But in this town, one sneeze from a monkey is basically a civic event. Tonight's historical fact in medieval Europe, sneezing was sometimes viewed as more than a bodily function. It was an omen, a warning, or, depending on who was watching, a sign of divine or demonic presence. If a monkey sneezed in a medieval port town, especially one already slightly traumatized by plagues, people noticed and reacted, usually poorly. It begins with whispers. Someone claims Pippin sneezed 3 times and looked east. Another says he pointed to a cart of shellfish just before doing it, which might mean the fish are cursed. A third says she saw him sneeze while looking directly at her baby. You arrive at the pigeon loft to find it surrounded by townsfolk in various states of speculation and soggy panic. He never sneezes. It's the figs. I told you too many figs. No, it's the vest. He needs a thicker one. Maybe he's allergic to sin. Inside, Mathieu is trying to calm Pippin with a slice of soft pear and a lullaby written 5 minutes ago. The monkey appears perfectly fine. Alert, playful perhaps, mildly annoyed by the attention. He sneezes again. It echoes. A woman faints. Someone throws a lavender sachet into the window. The council is alerted, of course. They dispatch a representative from the newly formed Committee of Simian Affairs. Yes, that's a real thing now. He arrives with an umbrella, a clipboard, and absolutely no qualifications. We'll need to observe him, he says. Mathieu narrows his eyes. You mean watch him? The man clears his throat. Yes, closely, through a lattice, preferably from across the street. Marta, the herbalist, is summoned. She examines Pepin, sniffs the air, and declares, He's fine. He sneezed because he's alive. We all do it. Then she sneezes. A dramatic pause. Then someone claps. But logic doesn't settle things. By evening, small paper charms appear on doors again. The candle seller makes a brisk trade in beeswax tapers to purify the nostrils. And a traveling bard writes a song titled The Day the Monkey Sneezed, complete with dramatic minor chords and one very theatrical sneeze sound played on a bladder pipe. You pass the market just in time to hear the chorus. He twitched his nose. The winds did shift. The townsfolk braced for airborne rift. O monkey lord, we beg thee, cease. And grant our sinus lines some peace catchy. Terrible. Absolutely destined to be hummed for weeks. Here's the quirky academic dispute in one obscure manuscript from a Flemish port. There's a marginal note beside a drawing of a monkey wearing a cape. It reads, If the beast sneezes thrice before sundown, the cheese will spoil. Scholars can't agree if this was superstition or satire. But either way, it says a lot about how serious people were about sneezing. And cheese. By nightfall, the rain lets up. The council releases an official statement. Citizens are advised not to overreact to animal respiratory events. Any further panic will be addressed with lavender logic and possibly a nap. Mathieu pins the notice beside Pipin's loft. Pipin eats part of it. That seems fair. You walk home past shuttered stalls and wet cobbles. Somewhere, a cat meows at its reflection. Somewhere else, a baker sneezes and looks around guiltily. The town exhales not in peace, but in manageable worry. Back at the loft, Pipin curls into a ball beside his little vest and dreams of pears. 3 lightly sneezed, bedtime chuckles. Why did the monkey carry a handkerchief? Because the council gave him one. And a 7-page sneeze protocol. What's the best way to stop a medieval panic? Don't sneeze. Or, if you must do it behind a curtain. Why did the bard love monkey sneezes? Because they rhyme with diseases, cheeses, and old parish leases. The morning after the sneeze, the town wakes up in a hangover of speculation. Not from wine, but from too many theories, too many meetings, and far too much lavender. You're standing by the fountain in the town square, where a heated discussion is in progress under a very damp awning. A merchant is holding up a piece of parchment with hand-drawn charts showing monkey behavior in weather shifts. It's titled, The Simian Barometer, How One Sneeze Predicts Trade Winds. You don't ask questions, you just walk away. Tonight's historical fact, some medieval port communities, when overwhelmed by fear or unexplained illness, began looking for patterns in animal behavior, especially in imported animals. Monkeys, cats, and even birds were used as unofficial early warning systems. If the monkey sneezes, it's a bad omen. If the cats leave the docks, a storm is coming. If the parrot stops talking, the tax collector is near. Back at the pigeon loft, Pipin has returned to normal. Or as normal as a monkey in a vest in public favor can be. He's chewing on a piece of cinnamon bark and watching Mathieu recopy the town's new health and sneeze ordinance, which now includes a clause titled Unexpected Sounds from Sentient Mammals. Mathieu pauses. Do you think he understands the chaos he causes Pepin belches? Softly. Mathieu nods. That's a yes. Elsewhere in town, a group of aging nobles has formed the society for the ethical appreciation of decorative monkeys. Their mission? To promote the positive legacy of monkeys in town culture. Their first act? Commissioning a mural. The artist, a tall man with ink-stained teeth and a flair for over-detail, paints Pipin, standing on a hill, holding a scroll surrounded by roses and scrolls and 3 confused goats. He titles it The Sage of Sneeze Hill. The mural becomes an instant sensation. Children leave figs at its base. Tourists, 2 merchants from the next city take charcoal rubbings. One man claims the mural cured his hiccups. No one questions him. It's been a long week. Here's the strange twist. A traveling physician arrives from the north. He's heard of the sneezing monkey port and wants to study the specimen. He wears a long robe, 6 rings, and a hat so wide it requires navigation. He enters the town square like a man who expects to be applauded. He is not. He examines Pippin, takes notes, pokes around the loft, and concludes this monkey is extremely healthy. Also, his sneeze was likely due to dust or excessive joy, possibly both. The town responds by inviting him to dinner and ignoring everything he says, because facts are good, but not as satisfying as drama. At the monastery, Brother Anselm updates his manuscript. The latest chapter is titled The Theology of Tiny Storms, Monkeys' Miracles, and Misunderstandings. He includes a small diagram of a sneeze path, complete with wind vectors and emotional ripples. Brother Hugo refuses to comment, though his wooden monkey carvings have grown increasingly detailed and now include tiny vests. Meanwhile, someone begins selling scented monkey-shaped candles. They're supposed to ward off false sneezes and bring harmony to the nose. They smell like beeswax, thyme, and unverified hope. They sell out in hours. And then, of course, comes the poem. Posted on the main gate at dawn, he sniffed. He snorted, eyes went wide. The town stood still. The tide did bide. A sneeze so small a world upturned. In monkey's breath, our lesson learned. The poet remains anonymous, likely because no one wants to admit to rhyming snorted with upturned. The council meets to discuss public health and branding. The mayor suggests including Pipin on the town's official seal. A few groan, a few cheer. One councilwoman proposes a seasonal festival, the Day of the Gentle Sneeze, with parades and cakes shaped like lungs. That idea is tabled. You return to the pigeon loft just in time to see Mathieu hanging a new sign above the door. Pipin's place. Watch your step. Mind your fruit. Pippin hangs upside down from the doorframe, chirps and drops a walnut. It hits the sign. He cackles like a tiny triumphant jester. 3 delightfully sneeze-resistant jokes for bed. What do you call a monkey's accidental weather report? A forecast with flair. Why did the scented candles sell out? Because nothing soothes fear like overpriced wax. What's the town motto now? In figs, we trust, in sneezes, we flinch. The town wakes up to a new sound today. Not bells, not market carts, and thankfully, not another sneeze. It's music. Specifically lute music being played badly outside the pigeon loft by a man with a feathered hat, a dazzling grin, and the self-confidence of someone who thinks public serenades are always a good idea. You're watching from across the square, holding a lukewarm fig tart when he strums a heroic chord and announces, to the monkey who changed everything, a ballad. Mathieu leans out the window. Please don't. The bard ignores him. Tonight's historical fact: in certain medieval cities, popular figures, both human and animal, became the subject of spontaneous ballads and street performances. Sometimes flattering, sometimes confusing, sometimes involving rhymes so bad they were outlawed. A handful of these beast ballads have survived in dusty manuscripts, usually scribbled in margins next to shopping lists or confessions. The bard's song is titled Ode to the Vestling. He sings of Pipin's noble sneeze, his wisdom dubious, his fashion sense unmatched, and his revolutionary impact on textile regulations. That last line gets a polite clap from a passing tailor. Pipin, meanwhile, is watching from the loft like a tiny emperor evaluating tribute. He tilts his head, picks something from his ear, and throws it at the bard. The crowd interprets this as a blessing. The mayor arrives mid-verse and suggests gently that the bard move his performance to the far end of the docks. The bard agrees, but only after asking if the monkey will be attending the next festival. The mayor doesn't say no. Back at the monastery, Brother Anselm has entered his theatrical phase. He's written a short play titled The Parable of the Primate, featuring a monkey prophet, a town in denial, and a fig tree that recites moral lessons. Brother Hugo plays the fig tree. Badly. The play is not well received. One monk gets the giggles. Another trips on a prop scroll. A third asks if the monkey can play himself. When told no, he leaves in protest. Still, the script is copied and sent to a neighboring abbey. A week later, they request 12 more copies and suggest adding a second act. Here's a quirky detail from history. In some 14th century traveling shows, trained animals were cast in morality plays. There's a recorded case of a monkey playing Envy in a German production of The Seven Vices, wearing green sleeves and stealing every scene and snack. Back in town, things are changing. Slowly, subtly. The council posts a new sign. Official monkey-free zones, suggested not enforced. The bakery begins printing Pipen's face on bread crusts. A fur trader paints "Blessed by the Beast" on his stall and sells out of scarves within an hour. But not all reactions are celebratory. A small faction of townspeople, calling themselves the Order of the Stern Apron, begin posting flyers. Too much monkeying around "Let's return to order." They hold quiet meetings. They wear brown. They frown often. Their leader, Madame Celeste, insists the town has lost its spine and replaced it with fluff. She proposes a formal hearing on animal symbolism and municipal integrity. Mathieu is invited to speak. He declines, politely, then by drawing a doodle of Pippin in the margins of the invitation and hanging it in the bakery. Still, the hearing is scheduled. You attend out of curiosity. It's held in the old grain hall, now repurposed with chairs, citrus-scented candles, and far too many witnesses. Madame Celeste reads a list of concerns, including the collapse of proper tone, the risk of moral laziness, and the vest as gateway attire. Mathieu calmly responds, "I didn't ask for attention. Pippin didn't ask to sneeze. None of this was planned. But we laughed instead of panicked. We adapted. That's not chaos. That's growth." Pippin, seated on Mathieu's shoulder in a fresh vest with gold stitching, tosses a grape into the audience. It lands in someone's cup. The room laughs. Madame Celeste does not. The hearing ends with no decisions, just a lot of muttering and one very long sigh from the town clerk. That night, a candle flickers in the bakery window. A small sign beneath it reads, "In confusion a sneeze. In a sneeze, a moment. In a moment us." 3 rhyme and verse jokes before dreams begin. Why did the bard love the monkey? Because rhyme is easier with Pippin than governance. What's the fig tree's favorite role in a play? The one where it doesn't have to talk. Why did Madame Celeste ban monkey imagery? Because deep down she wanted a vest too. The first festival banner goes up at dawn, painted in hurried strokes of indigo and green, flapping in the wind, like a question someone forgot to punctuate. You're sipping a warm mug of something sweet and herby from Marta's shop. She's calling it celebration tea, though it smells suspiciously like reheated soup. With confidence, when the mayor makes the official announcement, "We hereby declare next Thursday the first annual feast of the benevolent sneeze." Silence. Then a small cheer from the baker. Then a confused cough from the tax clerk. And finally, one loud cackle from Pippin, who is balanced upside down on a window ledge wearing what appears to be a miniature paper crown and no regrets. Tonight's historical fact: medieval towns, especially coastal or trade-rich cities, often invented spontaneous festivals. In response to recent crises, unusual visitors, or even popular dreams. These events weren't always religious. Sometimes they were about marking survival, or laughter, or just not dying. Scholars refer to them as civic rituals of coping. Preparations begin immediately. The blacksmith volunteers to build a fig-flinging catapult, which is either symbolic or just deeply on brand. The school children are tasked with writing primate poems to be read aloud by town officials. One child submits 6 pages of banana jokes. They're all accepted. Mathieu is asked gently if Pepin would lead the parade. He considers it, then replies, "Only if the vest is clean, the music is good, and no one tries to throw rosemary at him this time." The council agrees. Pepin will ride in a wheelbarrow, decorated like a royal carriage, complete with flower garlands, and a sign that reads, "No autographs. Please." You pass by the tailor's shop that afternoon. He's working on the official festival vest, a masterpiece of blue velvet brass buttons and a tiny stitched grape on the collar. He's also sewing 5 more for backup just in case. Just in case of what he doesn't specify. Over at the monastery, Brother Anselm is drafting a prayer for continued comic relief and mild health. Brother Hugo, at this point fully resigned, has begun carving a tiny wooden float, shaped like a fig. No one asked him to. He's just involved now. Here is a curious historical tidbit. In some medieval cities, animal-themed festivals blurred the line between farce and faith. Monkeys were paraded in mock processions, not as gods, but as messengers of absurdity, living reminders that unpredictability ruled more than logic. One town in France even dressed a goat as a bishop for an entire day. The goat ate the church ledger. No one ever found page 7. Back in our own slightly confused town, things escalate. A fishmonger proposes a blessing of the sardines to keep them from going off during warm spells. The town juggler unveils a new act. 1 man, 3 oranges, and 1 monkey-approved punchline. The oranges survive. The punchline doesn't. Someone paints a mural on the side of the granary Pepin, standing atop a fig tree, pointing dramatically at the horizon. Beneath it, let us not forget who reminded us to sneeze freely. The lettering is crooked. The sentiment is sincere. But of course, not all is fig and frolic. The Order of the Stern Apron returns now with pamphlets. They claim the festival undermines moral seriousness and that fruit-based humor leads to civic decay. They hold a small counter-procession featuring a donkey, 2 pots of stew, and a banner that says, "Enough." The donkey refuses to move. The stew is too salty. The banner falls off. Meanwhile, Pepin is rehearsing his parade wave. It's not graceful, but it's earnest. He flings a button into the crowd and hits the candle seller, who takes it as a sign and changes her shop name to Wax and Wisdom. Marta, ever the herbalist oracle, just laughs from her shop doorway. "They're trying to explain joy again," she mutters. It won't stick. As the festival draws near, the town vibrates with nervous anticipation. Tables are set up. Lanterns are hung. Someone writes a song called The Gospel According to Pepin. It's mostly chorus, mostly nonsense, and entirely beloved. 3 fig-shaped bedtime chuckles. Why did Pepin refuse to wear the parade cape? Because it clashed with his sense of irony. What's the donkey's review of the Stern Apron Protest, 2 hooves down? Would not march again. Why is the fig the official fruit of celebration? Because grapes cause jealousy and plums are passive-aggressive. The day of the Feast of the Benevolent Sneeze arrives with the kind of weather that feels undecided, part sunshine, part drizzle, and all anticipation. You're standing near the town square, where streamers in questionable color combinations flap like overcooked noodles. Someone's playing a lute tuned slightly too tight, and the smell of roasted chestnuts battles aggressively with the scent of overripe figs. The parade is assembling. At its center, a wheelbarrow transformed into a floral throne, rolling slowly toward the square. Pepin sits atop it, like royalty, who's just remembered he's allergic to parades. He blinks, yawns, and adjusts his new festival vest, navy blue, with gold embroidery and a tiny patch on the back that reads, "Official Sneezer-in-Chief." Tonight's historical fact: Certain medieval processions, especially those that emerged from civic folklore, often elevated non-human characters, real or symbolic, as icons of survival or satire. These processions blurred the line between celebration and commentary. Monkeys, goats, pigs, and once infamously a singing eel were all given star roles in such events. The townsfolk lined the cobbled streets, cheering throwing pedals, and occasionally offering small gifts, buttons, dried fruit, scribbled prayers. One man hands Pippin a poem. The monkey eats it. Behind him, a small brass band performs The Gentle Sneeze. March a tune, written just this week, mostly in one key, occasionally in others. The rhythm is enthusiastic, if nothing else. Mathieu walks proudly beside the wheelbarrow, dressed in a tunic that doesn't quite match, but radiates sincerity. He holds a scroll containing Pippin's festival rights, including freedom of fig access parade, exit privileges, and a clause that states, no one shall ask the monkey to perform tricks unless he offers first. As the procession rounds the bakery, the crowd swells. Children wear painted paper masks shaped like Pippin's face, some accurate, some wildly interpretive. One child's version has wings, another breathes fire, a third has the words "Sneeze Wizard" written across its forehead in jam. The bakery, now renamed Fig and Folly, gives out mini monkey muffins dusted with cinnamon and rumors. Each comes with a tiny paper fortune. Yours reads, "He who laughs at fruit shall not cry over crumbs." And meanwhile, the Order of the Stern Apron watches from beneath a gray canopy. They're holding signs like "Dignity before doodles," and "This town deserves better than vests." One member tries to hand out celery sticks as purity snacks. No one accepts. Back in the procession, Marta walks with a basket of herbs, gently waving rosemary bundles like leafy incense. She murmurs a blessing every few steps. For peace, for breath, for a lighter load. Pippin sneezes once politely, and the crowd applauds. Here's a quirky footnote. A 15th century ledger from a port in Aragon records a civic animal parade where a goose was crowned guardian of the grain. The goose wore a velvet collar and reportedly bit 3 officials. No one regretted it. The event was repeated for 7 years. In our town, the festivities roll into evening. A puppet show reenacts the Great Monkey Trial using cabbage dolls. The audience howls. Someone throws a shoe at the puppet bishop. The puppeteer bows deeply. Near the docks, a group of sailors host a juggling contest judged entirely by Pippin. He does not understand what juggling is, but rewards participants with loud screeches and the occasional grape toss. One juggler is declared most spirited after dropping everything but smiling continuously. And then the final ceremony, the hanging of the monkey moon banner. It's a large cloth, painted hastily, but with love, showing Pippin perched on a crescent moon, surrounded by figs, candles, and what appears to be a giant sneeze, rendered in gold thread. It is hoisted onto the flagpole near the square, while the crowd hums the final verse of the day's anthem, when fear did knock, and coughs did rise. A monkey blinked his gentle eyes. We laughed, we gasped, we wore the best. And now we lay our doubts to rest. The moon rises, lanterns glow. Pippin dozes on Mathieu's shoulder, still wearing his crown, one paw wrapped gently around a plum pit. 3 chuckles before the festival fades into dreams. Why did the monkey yawn during the parade? Because being the face of resilience is exhausting. What's the official fruit of post-crisis bonding? The fig because it's sweet, squishy, and oddly hard to spell. Why didn't anyone eat the celery from the apron order? Because even monkeys know when something's just sad. The morning after the festival is unusually quiet, like the town collectively exhaled and is now unsure whether to inhale again. You're sitting on the monastery wall, sipping warm barley tea that tastes like if bread had dreams, watching townsfolk clean up end bits of streamers, fig peels, and a single velvet glove someone insists belonged to the mayor's cousin. It didn't. Up at the pigeon loft, Pippin is asleep on a cushion shaped like a turnip. His crown has fallen over one ear. His vest is slightly crooked. He looks like a hero returning from battle, or at least a very dramatic nap. Tonight's historical fact in post-festival periods, during the medieval era, it wasn't uncommon for towns to experience a collective emotional slump. Scholars call it ritual fatigue. Others call it Monday. These days were marked by odd introspection. Unusual decisions and occasionally new laws passed, while everyone was still too tired to argue. And sure enough, the council meets before lunch and passes 5 resolutions. Among them, monkeys must be weighed quarterly for emotional transparency. Festival vests are now considered formal wear. All sneezes within 50 feet of the loft must be declared celebratory. Fig muffins are exempt from bread taxes. No new murals without committee approval. That last one causes a minor riot in the Painters Guild. Meanwhile, at the monastery, Brother Anselm announces his next work-in-progress sermons of the sneeze on breath laughter and animal confusion. Brother Hugo has no comment, though he's been spotted carving a wooden scene of Pipin throwing a scroll at a bishop. In the town square, things begin to shift. The bard from last week has returned with a printed pamphlet of his song lyrics, now bound with twine and optimism. He offers them as monkey-blessed verses for weather and weddings. One fisherman buys 5 for luck, and because he likes the drawings, Mathieu, ever cautious, starts creating a routine for Pipin. Morning fruit, midday walk, afternoon scratch behind the ears. He hopes structure will help Pippin relax after the fanfare. It mostly results in Pipin stealing schedules and repurposing them as snacks. A new visitor arrives in town, a chronicler from the Royal Archives, curious about the so-called sneezeport phenomenon. He wants interviews. He wants names. He wants Pippin's hoofprint. When reminded that Pippin has hands, not hooves, he nods solemnly and asks if the monkey speaks Latin. Mathieu tells him Pippin is fluent in sarcasm. The chronicler writes that down. Here's a curious archival footnote. A minor port near Seville kept an official animal ambassador in the 1430s, a one-eyed monkey named Bartolo, who, according to records, settled disputes by baring teeth at both parties until one confessed. It worked 3 times. Then he bit someone's shoe and was promoted to decorative mascot. Back in our town, not everyone is thrilled by the lingering monkey mania. The order of the stern apron dwindled, but still frowning. Issues a letter titled In Defense of Seriousness. They argue that joy is fleeting, but order is eternal. Their suggestion: replace the Pipin mural with a diagram of proper hand-washing technique. Their petition gathers 5 signatures and 1 doodle of a cabbage. Marta reads the letter size and begins brewing a new tea blend called Calm Thy Apron. It smells like lemon balm in subtle defiance. As the sun sets, the town enters a kind of reflective stillness. No parades, no puppets, just a faint breeze and the quiet snore of someone's dog dreaming of leftovers. You find yourself walking past the bakery. The window still displays fig-shaped candles, now marked Half-Price Festival. May return next year. A handwritten sign reads, If a sneeze began it, let a smile sustain it. You nod. At the loft, Pippin is awake, watching stars through a tiny arched window. He clutches a grape like a telescope and occasionally tries to look through it. Mathieu hums softly while tidying up a trail of plum pits. There's peace in the mess. 3 restful post-party chuckles. Why did the monkey look through a grape to see if joy had a core? What's the side effect of ritual fatigue? Unscheduled naps and spontaneous wisdom. Why did the monk bless the muffin? Because someone sneezed near it, and better safe than sorry. There's a new sound in town. Not bells, not sneezes, not poorly tuned lute music, It's scratching. You're leaning against the granary wall, watching a group of townsfolk stare intently at a fresh carving on the pigeon loft's wooden beam. It's not elegant. It's not even entirely legible, but it clearly shows a small figure, round head, long arms, tiny vest, raising one hand toward a fig tree. Below it, someone has scrawled, "He who sneezed and survived." Pipin has been canonized by graffiti. Tonight's historical fact: informal sainthood, or folk sainthood, was not uncommon in medieval towns. People would adopt local heroes, animals, or even inanimate objects, a sword, a potato-shaped stone, a really effective door, as unofficial protectors. These weren't church-sanctioned. They were local, emotional, practical, and sometimes mildly absurd. Word spreads quickly. By midday, children are rubbing coins against the carving for luck. A cheese vendor claims her wheels aged better overnight because she whispered to it. A shepherd asks if he can bring his goats to see the sacred beam. One goat licks it and faints, probably unrelated. Mathieu, ever practical, is horrified. He's a monkey, not a miracle. The town disagrees. A woman from the northern farms arrives with a satchel full of dried lavender and a request. "Can the monkey bless my bread?" Mathieu says no. Pippin gently sneezes. The woman cries. It's a sign. Martha shakes her head and declares, "This is exactly how shrine making begins. First the beam, then the bracelets, then someone sells monkey-shaped relics." She's not wrong. By afternoon, someone's already selling small wooden medallions with Pipin's face on one side and a grape on the other. Back at the monastery, Brother Anselm is conflicted. He says flipping through his manuscript, he did bring joy. He did survive scrutiny. He didn't bite anyone. Brother Hugo mutters, yet. Still, Anselm begins a new section, Lives of the Minorly Marvelous, starting with Pipin, and followed by a rooster who once predicted rain. In a sidebar, he sketches Pippin standing atop a stack of town ordinances, holding a scroll that says, "Not my fault." Here's the quirky historical echo. A 14th century fishing town in Wales once revered a one-eyed cat that allegedly calmed the storm spirits. The cat lived to be 20, fathered 28 kittens, and was buried in a salted barrel. A chapel was built near the spot. People left dried herring as tribute. No one complained. In our town, things escalate. Someone stitches a tapestry showing Pipin sneezing on a pirate ship, causing the pirates to abandon their looting and pursue aromatherapy instead. It's weirdly inspiring. A traveling merchant offers to buy it. The weaver refuses. "This is personal," she says. The town council meets to discuss the theological implications of unauthorized monkey sainthood. The meeting lasts 4 hours and concludes with this statement: "We recognize the monkey's impact. We deny his divinity. We acknowledge the public's right to enthusiasm." The town cheers. Someone tries to read that last part in Latin. It ends in hiccups. Meanwhile, the Order of the Stern Apron is not amused. They draft a formal complaint titled "Against the Cult of the Clothed Chimp." They nail it to the bakery door. The baker draws a mustache on it. Pippin himself seems entirely unaware of his rising sanctity. He spends the afternoon pulling petals off a flower and trying to balance a plum on his head. He fails, repeatedly, with style. That evening, a quiet procession walks past the pigeon loft. No fanfare, just 5 villagers carrying candles and leaving small offerings. A thimble, a dried fig, a button, a poem. One simply whispers, "Thanks." Not for healing, not for protection, but for lightness, for surviving the weirdness together. You sit nearby, watching the candles flicker. The wind smells like rosemary and roasted barley. Somewhere, a child sneezes and immediately shouts, "I'm fine, I'm fine." 3 soft, heretical chuckles before dreams. Why did the monkey refuse sainthood? Because he didn't want the paperwork or the hat. What's the name of Pipin's relic line, "Blessed nonsense TM, fig-scented and mildly smudged"? Why won't the goat return to the sacred beam? Because the beam didn't taste like cheese, and honestly, what's the point? The days grow warmer. The fig trees lean heavy with fruit. The breeze starts to carry the scent of dust time and the unmistakable aroma of seasonal identity crisis. You're lounging in the shadow of the granary, a mostly intact straw hat perched on your head, watching a group of scholars argue about whether Pipin should be classified as a historical figure or a non-human catalyst of communal recalibration. The monkey in question is currently trying to eat a feather. Tonight's historical fact by the late Middle Ages towns that had experienced highly unusual episodes, plagues, miracles, floods of frogs, or in this case, monkey-based melodrama, often began documenting the event, not in medical texts, but in civic annals, guild records, or poetry. Over time, the story blurred into symbol, then metaphor, then annual tradition. And here we are. The royal chronicler has returned with a second feather quill and a brand new cloak, ready to write the definitive account. He interviews everyone from the town crier to the goat who once fainted. His questions include: did the monkey initiate reform? Would you consider his sneeze to have prophetic undertones? Did the vest contribute to social cohesion? Mathieu, for his part, is trying to teach Pippin to sit still for a portrait. It's not going well. The artist, young, nervous and wearing a tunic with far too many pockets, keeps muttering things like, capture the essence, not just the tail. Pippin keeps licking the paintbrush. They compromise by drawing him mid-squirm. Elsewhere in town, the mural on the granary wall has been updated. Pippin now stands beside a scroll labeled Civic Clarity, wearing a laurel crown and holding a fig in one hand and a tiny balance scale in the other. No one knows who added it, but everyone agrees it's somehow inspiring and uncomfortably accurate. You stroll past the apothecary where Marta has started blending a new tea named Monkey Mind. The label says it's for restoring balance, interrupting overthinking, and occasional ticklish moods. She hands you a pouch for free and says, take it before you start debating fig symbolism again. Back at the monastery, Brother Anselm announces an exhibit, Sacred Simplicities, the unexpected icons of our age. It features Pipin's vest replica, one of the fig muffins from the festival slightly petrified, and the very first caricature someone drew of the sneeze event, now titled Portrait of a Town Mid-Panic. Brother Hugo's contribution is a small wooden sculpture of a monkey sleeping on a scroll. He titles it Wisdom by Accident. Here's a delightfully odd side note from history. A 15th century French town once enshrined a chair that never wobbled even during storms. It became a place for settling disputes, writing poems, and occasionally just sitting very quietly while everyone argued nearby. They called it La Chaise Juste. It was eventually stolen by a playwright and added to a farce about bureaucratic goats. Our town now considers adding Pipin's likeness to the official coinage. The proposal includes a side profile, a vest fringe border, and the motto in laughter strength. The vote is split. One merchant insists coins should stick to actual humans. Another argues, have you met humans? Meanwhile, a group of students from a nearby city arrive to study the monkey phenomenon. They ask questions. They sketch diagrams. One tries to measure Pipin's social gravity by dropping grapes and timing reactions. Pipin eats all the grapes before the experiment starts. The students leave impressed and slightly sticky. As evening settles in, you pass by the bakery, now offering something called the Philosopher's Tart. It's shaped like Pipin's face and filled with fig honey and questions. The sign beside it says Warning May, cause unexpected insight. You take one. It's chewy, contemplative, and oddly satisfying. You sit near the fountain as the stars emerge one by one, like secrets you forgot you knew. Above the wind ruffles the banner still fluttering from last week's parade. Pippin curls into Mathieu's lap, holding a small stone he's decided is important. There's no fanfare now, just the quiet echo of a town learning to breathe again. 3 bedtime crumbs of comedy. Why did the monkey reject the gold coin design? Because it made his ears look too philosophical. What's in a philosopher's tart a fig? A question and the faint taste of being slightly wrong, but in a good way. Why did the artist give Pipin a scale? Because justice is important, even if you're only weighing grapes. By now, the town has settled into something strange, but soothing, a routine with a monkey-shaped indent. You're walking through the square at midday, where the sun filters through linen canopies dyed in shades of fig plum. And who approved this pink? Someone's playing a slow tune on a flute, made from an old quill. And in the middle of it all, Pipin is sitting calmly atop a stack of crates, wearing his vest like a uniform, and holding court with all the gravitas of a retired magistrate who once sentenced a frog to community service. Tonight's historical fact: in some late medieval cities, animals that became civic icons were quietly incorporated into daily governance, not officially, of course, but symbolically. They attended meetings as mascots were consulted on seasonal market themes, and sometimes even had birthdays declared as public holidays. Most towns didn't believe these creatures had power, but everyone agreed they helped people feel like someone was listening. The latest example: the town council has started scheduling weekly informal reflections at the loft. Not meetings, not sermons. Just time to sit nearby, sip mint tea, and think about how a sneeze started all this. Some bring questions. Others bring bread. Pipin brings crumbs. You sit in on one of these sessions. A butcher asks, "How do we maintain unity without spectacle?" A baker replies, "We keep sharing muffins." A child interjects, "We give the monkey more hats." A vote is held. The muffin idea wins. The hat idea is shelved until someone finds feathers. Meanwhile, the local carpenter has designed what he calls a civic nest. It's a small open-air gazebo built beside the pigeon loft with benches, fig carvings, and a roof shaped like a monkey's paw. Somehow elegant, not terrifying. It becomes the new favorite spot for debate storytelling and long, silent stares into the middle distance. Mathieu seems relieved that life has slowed. Pippin naps more. The fig muffins have fewer glittery sprinkles. Even the bard has run out of rhymes. But not everyone is easing up. The Order of the Stern Apron, now reduced to 3 members, and a goat named Fern, has rebranded. They now call themselves the Restorers. Their new mission: reclaim the town's serious legacy before next winter. They've started publishing a newsletter titled The Fig-Free Chronicle, which includes such headlines as "Do monkeys belong in government? When did we stop fearing Sneeze's cabbage, the forgotten symbol of stability?" Most people ignore it, except Fern. She eats every copy left on the ground. At the monastery, Brother Anselm begins offering a weekly lecture, Laughter as Liturgy. He invites townsfolk to join in reflections, read aloud mildly irreverent parables, and occasionally mime a monkey carrying a loaf of bread. Brother Hugo insists he's only attending for the free ginger biscuits, but he's always the first to arrive. Here's the delightful historical echo: a portside abbey. In the Low Countries, once adopted a stray otter after it was seen rescuing a child's dropped doll from the river. They named it Brother Ottis, taught it to ring the smallest bell, and insisted it brought humility to their worship. It never spoke, of course, but it listened better than most novices. In our town, Pipin has become a kind of ambient comfort, a symbol not of strength or strategy, but of something even rarer in medieval civic life: sustained silliness. He starts visiting the shoemaker's stall in the mornings, sitting still, just long enough to be measured for tiny sandals. He fails to wear them, of course, but the shoemaker feels useful again. The inn begins offering a drink called the Vestful Grapeworm Wine, steeped with plum mint and an echo of mischief. It's oddly popular with visiting scribes and deeply confusing to one merchant who expected something with more actual grapes. That evening, you stroll past the fountain, where someone has placed a small plaque: Pipin's Law. If life throws you figs, wear the vest. If it sneezes, lean in. If it laughs, join it. Pippin nearby is trying to balance a spoon on his head. 3 gentle giggles for the road to sleep. Why don't civic monkeys wear shoes? Because dignity begins at the ankles. What's the restorer's biggest threat? Goats with bad taste and excellent digestion. Why is the gazebo shaped like a paw? Because roofs are better with stories overhead. There's a new debate in town. It starts as these things often do, with a comment that wasn't supposed to be overheard. A visiting trader from the inland city of Trois Marais glances at Pippin, currently reclining in a sunbeam, tossing plum pits at pigeons, and mutters, "That monkey's more legend than logic. No way any of this really happened." The baker, standing nearby and folding dough, with the conviction of a man who's seen a monkey become municipal policy, does not respond with words. He simply hands the trader a fig tart shaped like Pippin's face and walks away. And just like that, the question spreads, did it really happen? Tonight's historical fact, in the absence of printing presses, standardized spelling, or reliable memory medieval events, often blurred into story, especially in towns where oral history mattered more than written records. A single event, like a sneeze, could evolve into a symbol, then a song, then an annual feast. And over time, the line between truth and tale wasn't just thin. It was decorative. You wander through the town square listening. Some townsfolk swear Pippin once leapt from a bell tower to save a falling scroll. Others claim he healed a blind fishmonger with a paw tap. One child insists he helped negotiate a treaty between ants and raisins. No one corrects her. Her confidence is inspiring. At the Pigeon Loft, Mathieu is writing, not about miracles, not about politics, but about the first day Pippin arrived, the tangled ropes, the sleepy eyes, the sneeze. He writes, "We didn't know we needed a monkey. We needed a break from being serious. We needed to remember how strange survival can be." He tucks the page into a small box, labeled, "For later," places it beneath a stack of folded vests, and doesn't mention it again. Meanwhile, the town artist, the same one who painted Pippin's mural and once compared his own brushstroke to a duck with anxiety, has begun sketching a new piece, The Ballad of the Nearly True Monkey. It features 13 scenes, 5 of which definitely never happened, 3 of which might have, and 1 where Pippin is inexplicably made of cheese. It will hang in the town hall for decades. The council assembles to discuss the growing confusion. The mayor, sensing both opportunity and exhaustion, proposes the creation of a new civic role, the keeper of stories. Their job, not to decide what's true, but to record what's remembered. The vote passes unanimously. Marta is offered the position. She accepts with a small nod, a long sip of tea, and the words, "I was going to do it anyway." She sets up a scroll library inside the civic nest. People begin dropping off memories, like leaves, sketches, poems, clumsy rhymes, overheard phrases, like that time Pippin stared at the moon and it blinked. She doesn't question them. She just files them under possibly useful. Here's the academic debate that follows years later. Was the monkey real? Or was he an amalgamation? A blend of ship gossip, merchant tales, and fig-induced hallucination? One historian writes, "It does not matter if Pippin existed. It matters that he was needed, and that someone carved him into wood with love." Back in town, things are normal again. Not boring, not quiet, just normal, with a fig twist. The apothecary now sells memory tonic, a sweet blend of time-dried pear, and whatever truth you want to keep. It comes with a wooden spoon and a question. Pippin still naps in sunbeams, still wears a vest that's slightly too snug, and still throws food when no one is watching. That evening, as twilight softens the rooftops, you sit by the fountain and hear a voice, young, excited, maybe a little dramatic, telling the story to a group of new arrivals. It's the story of the monkey who sneezed and changed everything. The listener asks, Did that really happen? And the storyteller just smiles. Depends. Do you need it to 3 bedtime tales, possibly exaggerated? Why did the artist draw a pipin made of cheese? Because every story needs calcium and confusion. What does the keeper of stories never say? That didn't happen. She just writes faster. Why did the fishmonger believe the monkey healed him? Because he smiled afterward for the first time in weeks. There's something in the air tonight. Not smoke, not weather, not even time. It's a feeling. You're standing near the edge of the harbor, watching the water rock gently against the dock, like it's listening for something. The moon hangs low, unusually round, like it's paused mid-thought. And beside you, Pipin is perched on a crate, looking out at the horizon, as if he too is expecting company. No one says it out loud, but the town feels different. Tonight's historical fact: medieval communities were surprisingly adept at sensing the ends of eras, not because of precise calendars, but because of changes in rhythm. A silence where noise used to live, a pause between feast days, the final telling of a story that no longer sparks debate, only smiles. These moments weren't always marked by bells. Sometimes it was just a shift in the wind. In town, things are slowly folding themselves away. The mural painter has begun touching up the background sky. In his Pipin scene, not to add clouds or stars, but to soften the edges, make it fade. A shopkeeper quietly removes the official muffin of the monkey sign, replacing it with one that simply reads, "Fresh bread every day." Like always. Mathieu spends most of the day at the loft, patching the roof, reorganizing scrolls, brushing Pipin's vest with quiet focus. He hums while he works. Pippin doesn't stir. At the monastery, Brother Anselm finishes his final entry in the Acts of the Unexpected. He titles it, "And Then It Was Tuesday," and it ends with this line: "We knew something had passed through us, not a beast, not a tale, but a strange breeze that made us remember how to smile while holding a candle." Brother Hugo says nothing, just nods, and adds a carved Pipin figurine to the windowsill, facing outward toward the town. The civic nest now hosts a single scroll, "What We Learned." It's blank. Deliberately, visitors are invited to write one sentence before leaving. Some are philosophical. Joy and chaos are cousins. A sneeze is a sign of life. Laughter builds walls against silence. Others are deeply personal. I forgave my sister after 20 years. I danced for the first time again. Hey, I stopped blaming the fig tree. One just says he threw a grape and I laughed. Here's the scholarly whisper in some records. When an event of great emotional impact faded from civic view, it was marked with what they called a closing echo. Not a celebration, not a denial. Just one final act of quiet recognition. A statue cleaned, a candle relit, a monkey-shaped pastry baked without fanfare. In our town, that echo comes as the council quietly retires Pippin's honorary title. Not out of disrespect, but because they agree his work is done. The document is folded sealed and placed in the archive under Unusual Interventions category Soft Chaos. That night, as stars bloom across the sky, a group gathers at the harbor for no reason other than to sit together. No speeches, no reenactments, just silence, fig tarts, and shared memory. Pippin nestles beside Mathieu on the dock, snoring gently. A small breeze tousles the fur on his ears. A single grape rolls off the crate and into the sea, and that somehow feels right. 3 gentle closers warm as candlelight. Why didn't the town hold a farewell parade? Because some stories walk out softly on pause. What's left behind when a monkey-shaped legend fades? Fingerprints on windows, laughter in scrolls, one vest slightly too small. What's the final rule in Pipin's law? When the tale rests, let it, and don't forget the snacks. The town wakes up slower now, not from exhaustion, not from uncertainty, but from a kind of peace that's taken its shoes off and decided to stay a while. You're walking through the upper quarter, just as the sun rises, casting sleepy gold on the shutters. Birds are already halfway through their morning gossip. The baker's setting out his loaves. No monkey shapes today, just simple round, warm-smelling bread. You breathe it in. Something soft settles behind your ribs. At the pigeon loft, Pippin is asleep in a sunbeam, curled beside a basket of laundry that smells like rosemary and lemon. His vest hangs nearby, freshly washed, folded into a neat square, like a memory kept in a drawer. Mathieu sits cross-legged beside him, sketching something in a small book. You catch a glimpse. It's a fig. Nothing fancy. Just one fig, drawn with love. Tonight's historical fact in the final entries of some medieval town records, when a period of great change came to a close, scribes would often use a single word to mark the end. Not finished, not done, but something gentler. A word like placuit, meaning it pleased, or sufficit, meaning this is enough. Not as a conclusion, but as a breath, a pause, an acknowledgement. The civic nest is quiet today. Only 2 visitors. One writes, "I stopped needing the story. I started living the point of it." The other simply leaves a fig and walks away. The town now runs on routines again, but not the same ones. Bakers hum more. Blacksmiths pause between strikes just to listen. People still argue. Of course, it's a medieval town. Not a miracle, but they argue slower, softer, and with more muffins nearby. Brother Anselm retires, the acts of the unexpected, with a final footnote. We remain unsure if the monkey changed the town, or if the town needed changing and picked the first good excuse. Either way, the tea's better now. Even Brother Hugo admits over a shared plum tart. He did grow on me, like a sneezy barnacle. Marta seals her final jar of monkey mind tea and starts a new blend called Quiet Joy. No instructions, no promises. Just a ribbon tied around the lid with a little wooden charm, a paw print, and a plum. That night, you find yourself wandering up the hill past the chapel ruins, where no sermons have been held in years, but the wind always feels like it's whispering something kind. You sit on the mossy wall, look out over the rooftops, and you feel it. The strange warmth of having been part of something. Silly, tender, unlikely, and absolutely necessary. Pippin, somewhere below, sneezes in his sleep. The stars don't blink. They twinkle a little harder. 3 final bedtime smiles. Why didn't Pippin say goodbye? Because legends don't leave. They nap until needed again. What's the real miracle of the monkey story? That people remembered it and themselves at the same time. What's left when the vest is folded, the scroll is stored, and the fig is eaten? Only the quiet and the grin you didn't know you still had. So here we are, friend, at the edge of the tale. Not with a bang, not even a sneeze, just a hush. A kind of soft closing that settles over your shoulders, like a warm blanket smelling faintly of lavender and old wood. You've wandered with me through cobbled streets and candlelit lofts, listened to whispers about monkeys and muffins, sat through council debates, where figs held more weight than fear ever could. And now, everything is quiet, still, safe. Some stories end in crowns or conquests. This one ends with a nap and a folded vest. Maybe that's the lesson. That joy doesn't need to shout. That laughter once shared doesn't vanish. It just tucks itself into the corners of things, into a smile passed over bread, into the memory of a sneeze that rewrote a town's rhythm, into a monkey who never asked for attention and somehow reminded people how to live. So wherever you are tonight, whether beneath a wool blanket or curled near a window with city noise or countryside crickets, let yourself rest in the silliness, in the sweetness, in the surprising softness of a world that once let a sneeze become sacred. Let that be enough. That's the story for tonight. May your dreams be filled with wonder and peace.